is to talk about stuff with people and things. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It is June 10th. Sometime in 2023. God.
It's halfway through the year.
It really is.
We've made it. For better or worse.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? It's another year, it's another day, it's another thing. But
It's another event in time.
there is news in the tabletop world to talk about, so I mean that's always interesting, and I'm honestly happy because it's a week I don't have to worry about the insanity.
Yeah, there wasn't any Wizards news this week.
All the Wizards news that I could talk about, stuff that's already been talked about, you know? It's how
Didn't do anything worse.
you know, I know. It was sort of like I was like
Crazy.
people were just complaining about the stupidity of the way Wizards does things with Magic nowadays. And
Hey, I have something I can complain about Wizards real fast.
Oh, okay.
Right. I've been looking into Foundry, which has a lot of virtual table with a lot of systems on it. You know who doesn't put anything on Foundry and never will? Wizards. So it's very difficult to run 5e on Foundry. You have to program all that shit yourself.
Pokemon! God damn it!
Pokemon. And then there was that game announced, I think yesterday or the day before, that it's just Pokemon, but it has guns.
That could be it, but that's not it. Let me correct that. There you go. The G is gone. I don't know where that G came from, but it was there, and it was kind of hilarious, so I'm not gonna lie.
You don't have the accent on it, so it's just Pokemon.
It was Pokemon for a second there. Look, it's a mistyping. It's fine.
I don't know if you can do the accent without a French keyboard anyways.
There's a way to do it, but I can't remember because I looked into it years and years ago for side story. I took German in middle school for a bunch of years, so I was like a fourth-year German student before I switched to Japanese for a couple of years because bad teacher in German. Anyway, we did the pen pal thing, but you know what? We did it through email.
Oh, nice.
So there was a way to do it and set it up with a program. I remember back in the day to do like umlauts and stuff on an American keyboard.
I believe now you can just have an alternative language setting.
Yeah. That's also something. Yeah.
French for 5 years, and I remember nothing of it.
I can
read it, but I cannot speak it.
I probably do some basic conversation, maybe, as long as it's slow.
Let me just tell you, French is definitely a bad language because it's just too hard.
Yeah. That's the one good thing I remember about my middle school. They the four main languages that they start you out with. You took them in my first year there at middle school. A semester of German, French, Spanish, and Latin, and then you got to choose one for all the years after that.
We had Spanish and French, and I wanted to take Spanish, but the class was full, so I had to take French.
Yeah, I think
Spanish would be infinitely more useful in the United States, where half the country speaks Spanish.
As much as it would have been, back in that day, out of all those classes, I got a C in Spanish and A's in all the other. So Spanish went off my table right away. I was sort of like, well, I'm apparently bad at this.
Apparently, he was terrible.
Apparently, look, I'm terrible at English, so that explains why. German is just basically angry English.
That's partially true.
So that's why it was easier for me, and that's why I went with that.
This is a fun fact for you people, chat. It's really easy for English speakers to learn Danish, because Danish is very similar to English in its structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like English is a combination of three language groups.
It's almost also as if English is technically a Germanic language with a bunch of other languages tacked on, which just makes it so bad.
Scandinavian languages are really easy to learn for English speakers.
But anyway, I guess let's just start with the topic.
Yes.
Because It was an interesting tangent, but we probably should talk about things. I mean, it's
true. It is the point of this show.
Usually, this is one that I don't know about this game, but it is a European-based game, so honestly, probably wouldn't know a lot about this game. But there's a Kickstarter, which is already funded for, and it's an award-winning game in Europe that's getting it's for the U.S. version of it, basically. Sanssouci. I'm butchering that name to no end. Again, English is my 9th language, and I don't have any 1 through 8th. That's the joke. Anyway.
Fair.
So it's the English version of the game. The can ship anywhere into the world, except Japan due to licensing for the game there, apparently, which is a
fair
thing. It's technically below MSRP for it. You get a copy for $40. Retail price is normally $50. There's advanced copies, etc., etc. They have a thing on how to play. I don't know much about it, except, it was like, oh, it's award-winning. That means I should have known about it.
It's apparently famous, so we're ignorant Americans.
That's the thing, is like, it's the terrible thing that it's hard to hear about stuff in other languages, because
we're in the board gaming and tabletop space, all right? We don't get, 90% of Euro games.
Yeah.
They just never leave it. They just never leave their native language.
A lot of games from across the world just don't leave their native language, so they're hard to learn about and know about them. It's an unfortunate thing that exists, and it would be really nice to see more of some of these games, but
I don't know why they can't sell in Japan. That's very strange.
It might be that
only Japan.
What I'm guessing is what happened is there might be a Japanese version of this game already.
Might be, that's true.
Yeah, someone else made, and since they have the license in Japan, it can't be sold there legally, kind of thing, It would have to have been sold with the person that had licensed it in that country to begin with, kind of thing. I'm guessing, but again,
maybe
there could be another reason. Whatever reason, if you're in Japan and want an English copy of this game, you can't get it through them. I guess get your friend to buy it and ship it to you or something,
Well, you'd have to do, yeah.
So,
maybe after German palace, which is, I'm very curious what this game actually is, because I'm not actually read this. I guess it's a garden building game.
It looks like a garden building game, but it's also for a lot of players. It looks like, because they say 8+ players. Ages 8+ 2 to 4 players. Sorry if I'm
based on this building. Okay.
God, this anime. The information on the game is animated, so I have to watch it repeat loop.
That's not a great way to do that.
Yeah.
I guess it's based on a very famous building with a very beautiful garden.
This is nice. It looks like any of the other pledges are just for multiple copies of the game if you wanted them. So it's pretty much just $40 you get a copy of the game for a little cheaper than it would be retail.
Yeah.
So pretty simple there. This is Carcassonne, but fun.
I mean,
I like Carcassonne. No, it's not. It's not
like Carcassonne.
It's fine. It can be fun, but it's an older one. It's kind of like Catan. It's one of those older Euro games, and it certainly has its issues. But I don't know if I'd ever need something to describe that. It just feels kind of like a shot at it. But anyway, so again, it's funded if you're interested in checking it out, or if this is something that was on your radar because you are a fan of a lot of these Euro games and knew about it, check it out. Otherwise, you can always check out the Kickstarter yourself. Links there. It has 13 more days, so about 2 weeks to go. So, let's move on though. So this is an interesting one. I didn't even know this existed. I don't think I've got a good link to this. Is this one a good one? Sure.
I feel like if I Google this, I won't get an answer.
Okay. So, this is the thing. It's the Pokemon trading card game live worldwide. And it's apparently been in beta. And this is like the newest from this.
Yeah, okay, no, I know.
It's basically Arena, but Pokemon cards.
And probably better, because from what I know is, at least I believe, so I have friends who collect Pokemon cards. Pokemon card packs come with a digital code.
Okay, here's the link.
Magics do not.
Yeah, here's a link to this.
Reason.
Yeah, so apparently they've had the global system in beta up till now. They might have had. Thing is, I don't know a lot about this, so they could have had like more regional-based things. Like if you were playing, and you could have played like with people in the U.S. and they just made a worldwide version of it. But that's basically what they now. I don't know if this has existed before.
I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know how to play the Pokemon card game.
I played a little bit back at the beginning.
I collected them because they looked nice.
Yeah. How long has this been out? Okay. So it has been out since 2014. That's why the codes are with the cards. But what's been in beta and is coming out now is that it's now not country-based. You can play across the globe.
Which is good.
Yeah. So they must have systems in place that allow you to, translations and stuff for things and et cetera, all that. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess for, having a global, network is a challenge. So it's evolving their system more.
Its servers are expensive.
Yeah. And, multinational servers are a different thing entirely. So
probably.
Anyway.
I'm not a tech nerd, I don't know.
If you were always interested in this or a fan of the Pokemon Go trading card game, I mean, this is new.
Did you just call it the Pokemon Go trading card game, Sanssouci?
I probably did. My brain is just not working. Pokemon trading card game.
There you go.
God, this is a long day.
There's Pokemon Unite, there's MOBA.
For some reason, that also came to my brain there for a second. Is that a thing?
I've played, and it was fine.
I didn't play it, but I saw some people play it for a little bit, and then I heard someone talking about it recently. I guess that one's also in my brain.
It was okay. I mean, it's better than Dota.
Basically, someone was like, I think someone who doesn't do a lot of Switch stuff was playing a Switch and was like, and got an update for Pokemon Unite, and we're like, oh, that's still updates?
Yeah, they still develop that even though no one plays it.
Anyway, so yes, with their latest expansion, they've got the a full release of the worldwide version of their Live. I don't know if it's going to be better than their old version of Live, but again, it's been in beta this version now, so maybe it's a little bit better and maybe it's a reskin of it. Up to you to find out if you're a Pokemon TCG person. We don't really talk about it a lot here because honestly, I don't know enough about it.
I don't know shit about Pokemon.
I know
some. I just maybe this card game battler will have more frames than Scarlet.
You can only hope. God. Yeah, sorry, Arena. You're just bad in a lot of ways. Are you better now that you're out on Steam? Oh, that's a thing I could have had us talk about.
Arena is out on Steam. I haven't seen anyone talk about it.
It's probably just the same thing, except now also you can play it through Steam to find your friends a little easier.
24 frames. Nah, dude. Fucking Pokemon Violet was like 5 frames in some areas. Dude, you could see a windmill moving in super slow, choppy motion from a... It's so bad. They haven't fixed it yet either. It's still that way.
Of course they haven't. They're spending money on...
It still has severe memory leak issues if you play it for too long.
Anyway. What else can we talk about? I have this next one.
There's a whole docket you had.
I know, there's a whole docket. I just have to put these links together for this one. So this is one that's an upcoming project. But I've heard the one name here. I can't remember a lot about the game, but this is from the same people that did Heroes of... Where is that?
They did Warhammer Quest.
Warhammer Quest. The Heroes of Ternanoth. I've heard that one.
That one I don't know, but I have played Warhammer Quest.
Oh, I can't remember a lot about the Heroes of Ternanoth. I just remember the name. Because the name also... I couldn't say the name then, and I can't say the name now. So, you know.
Alright, just opened the Games Workshop website and got my fucking ears destroyed by noise.
Then I will not open that up. I'm glad
Do not open up. Something made a noise and it hurt.
What was it? It was the D20 PSFRD I went to this week, and all of a sudden, like, a random ad started playing, and I'm like, I have you set to not play or make noise. Why are you playing? What has changed? And loudly, too. I don't know. Anyway, so this is actually from a publishing company in Mexico, one of the largest indie ones there, that does tabletop games, and this is Dragonbound Quest. It's a cooperative-style card game, from the people that we talked about, and it's for 1 to 4 players doing epic adventures in the Dragonbound universe, which I don't know a lot about the Dragonbound universe, so...
I've never heard of them. Not gonna lie.
Again, the Dragonbound... It's apparently a mobile game. Maybe?
Fair. I don't know, maybe.
Well, it is, but I don't know if it's the only version of it that has a universe. Whatever, it's maybe it's the same one, maybe it's not. Anyway, you take on teams, step up your roles as Verena's great heroes to face fearsome dragons, villainous average, hordes of super minions, etc., etc. That kind of basic. It's a fantasy-style cooperative card game. So, and the company has an okay pedigree, or the people that kind of designed it have an okay pedigree. You know, Warhammer Quest.
Warhammer Quest is quite fun.
Yeah, and as I said, I've heard of Heroes of Ternanoth, and I heard good things about that. I can't remember anything else about it other than I heard good things about it. So that's, you know, when I was talking with someone sometime. So that's what I can say about that one. So, you know, designer's good. So the Kickstarter isn't live yet, of course, but I linked the opening page. I don't know. It's coming very soon, though. So
it's coming at some point in time.
Yeah, so keep an eye on it if you're interested. Anyway. So here's an interesting one. I don't have a... Let me see if I can find a better link to this. But this entire thing is... Upper Deck has filed a lawsuit against Ravensburger for alleged game theft.
Mm-hmm.
Upper Deck sues Ravensburger.
Interesting.
Yeah. Gizmondo has an article for it. That's not the one I started with, but we can go to that one. That's a pretty reputable site there to link. Just trying to find a good article.
Oh, okay. It's over the Disney thing. Over Lorcana.
Huh.
Disney card game.
Interesting. Apparently, former employee had done stuff on it to create it. Well, this is not, like, great for Disney's card game, which I know nothing about.
No, this definitely delays its launch.
Huh.
However, I'm just going to say this. This is very... Card games don't have a lot of mechanics to rip off.
Yeah.
They all fundamentally function like the same way and have all ripped off Magic the Gathering in some capacity.
Very true.
Because Magic the Gathering was the first trading card game.
Yes and no.
First popular one.
First popular one, definitely. But I do remember I did try to dive into the dirty history of TCGs in the 90s for a while back on my channel.
Yeah, nothing ever really stuck.
There were some interesting ideas and concepts back then, but, you know, cough, 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 Spellfire, cough, 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 cough. That was TSR's way of doing things. That's a D&D TCG. That's a game.
Yeah. I mean, if they can prove that there was full game theft, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But, man, I don't know. one of those things like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. Again, I don't know the date for Lorcana to be coming out. I only knew they were working on it. That was the last thing I heard about. So we'll have to keep an eye out on what's going on with this, because...
I think it was supposed to come out soon.
Oh, God. Well, that kind of...
Yeah, it was supposed to come out at Gen Con this year.
Oh, wow. I don't know if they can if there's a lawsuit going on.
No, it's going to heavily delay the... I mean, it might just never be allowed to come out.
That's the other thing, too, is it might just...
Depending on, right?
Yeah. Depending on the outcome, it might just kill the game.
Will Disney pay these legal fees? Probably not.
Because they might rely on Ravensburger to take care of it or something. Because, I mean, it is... As much as Disney probably has, allowed them to do it, they probably paid the licensing more than anything, and,
Yeah.
Or, some kind of investment there was more in Ravensburger's side.
It's very unlikely that Upper Deck can win this for the sole reason of you can't really, copyright game mechanics.
Yeah. It's this... I think we talked about this with the OGL and D&D and stuff a little bit, like the copyrighting of game mechanics. It's very difficult to do. That's why, it's a lot based on wording and stuff like that. But as having physical cards and stuff like that, there might be qualities, and it might be less that it's necessarily the way they're ripping off might be a thing too,
Yeah.
The idea that it's a former employee that's taking an idea and making it, or something like that.
Certainly something that's very difficult to prove in court, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Anyway.
I don't really have that much of an opinion. Be honest, I forgot Lorcana existed till 5 minutes ago.
It's the same for me, honestly, until I saw something as I saw stuff on this.
When you get a certain age, announcements just kind of leave your brain after you read them.
It didn't seem like it was necessarily my wheelhouse, honestly, so that's another reason why.
I'm not a Disney person. I am a card game person, but I don't really want to invest in a new card game.
I barely want to invest in an old card game.
I don't want to play Magic anymore. I definitely don't want to play Magic, but it's got Mickey Mouse on it.
Here, okay, look. What is it? There was $1 million bounty on that One Ring card.
Yeah.
It's just...
I think my favorite one was that guy who was a really big Magic collector. Was he gave 2 offers. One was really low, $100,000, which is absolutely scam. And then the second offer was we split the money. I give you half, and we go to an active volcano together and throw the card in. So honestly, that was quite funny, and I probably would take that one. Just, if only to just deny that card's existence to everyone else.
Yeah, I really feel like that. It needs to be it's.
If I can make the entire Magic the Gathering collectors community hate me, I'll be happy.
I think the best thing I heard someone say about that entire thing is the way they're setting it up, there will be an unnecessary amount of actual scalpers purchasing these sets and driving up the base price.
Collector sets are going to be very expensive.
Yeah. And also, people are going to buy the other stuff because they're going to be confused because there's also 5 different or 6 different ways. They're doing the video game industry thing of having a billion different things. You don't know what you get.
Hasbro has hired a bunch of video game executives.
Yeah, and it's just confusing and annoying, and people don't. And honestly, none of the customers like it, and they don't like it in video games. But
people are fine with it in video games because people have gotten complacent.
Yeah, they have. Anyway, so that's that one there. That's a lawsuit going on. Something to keep an eye on, and who knows if we're going to see.
It might go somewhere. It might not. Legal stuff takes a long time.
It's very true. So, I wanted to talk about this one because it's in both of our sort of backyards. and that is Monty Cook Games is doing Old Gods of Appalachia, the role-playing game.
That podcast.
Well,
I guess it's more of a radio show, technically speaking, in podcast format, but it is very good.
Okay. So they're having a physical version of this entire information available in early August. They got pre-orders open. It has a really interesting art style. And honestly, I technically live in the Appalachia region. I'm in the foothills.
You less, though.
I'm in the foothills.
I live in the plateau.
Yeah. I don't have to travel far to start getting much more mountainy.
We live in a mountain range that is older than bones.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of goes pretty much split between us, kind of in the state and stuff like that. Yeah. So, it's an altered 1920s, deep lore and atmosphere, dangerous and powerful creatures. It'll have 2 complete adventures to start the campaign in the book, apparently. Yeah. Very concept-driven character generation system of options.
It's a very good show as well.
So, very cool. Sounds awesome. It's a good one. They will also be doing a player's guide, but the base role-playing game... the role-playing game is 418-page hardcover for $70. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to play it about $70.
Or $23 for a PDF.
Or, yeah, $23 for a PDF. That doesn't sound terrible because it's 418 pages.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest, for 400 pages for a big rule book that's hardcover, 70 feels fine. Not the 200 pages that Wizards provides everything in.
Once again, it just goes to show other companies are... It's just Wizards is trying to go bottom barrel. Anyway, but yeah, so Gods of Appalachia. It's coming in August, but keep an eye on it. I wanted to talk. Where's the link to this? Here, there's the link I need here. Is that link? I wanted to talk about this one because it's funny, and that's, I guess, the best way I want to say it is. We've talked frequently about, occasionally, mecha stuff, but have we talked about a high fantasy mecha?
I think we talked about one.
RPG. Alright, well, maybe we did.
There was an Italian one.
Oh, Italians. Italians! Of course you did.
I don't remember what it was called, but I believe we talked about it.
I forget it too. So it's a high fantasy world where aesthetic knights clad in artifact armor, so you get giant robots, ancient robot artifacts that you can go fight stuff with. Aether Nexus. Funded 20 days to go on Kickstarter here. Yeah.
That's just a Gundam.
But it's fantasy Gundam.
The Dragoon is just a Gundam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just a fantasy Gundam, which I appreciate.
I mean, it can also it could also be a I can't remember what they're called from Macross that they changed form into planes. Also,
I've never seen Macross. I just know it's weird.
They're known for robots that transform into jet planes or something, or space planes or something. I don't know. Anyway, it apparently can shift into a skyborne vehicle or a giant robot. Anyway.
Nice.
Gundam is almost fantasy. You're not wrong.
Gundam is very close to fantasy.
They kind of skirt that line. So it's a full standalone game. You could use it with or without. They've got the Mecha Hack and Mission Manual. So they got a couple of books published in part of the group, and for $10 you get the basic Aether Nexus PDF. They also have a print version of it. For $35 is when you get the PDFs of all 3 books and all the digital stuff. So, yeah.
What I find interesting, personally, is the $16 and $10 pledge are the same, I think.
I feel like what it is is like if you want to pledge a little bit more to support them.
Yeah, which I think is actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like what they do.
Times
with, like,
are tough currently.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like what they kind of do with Humble sometimes too. They're like, you can support us at these different levels, you know, if you want to do a little bit more. Granted, that's charity, and this is just like supporting someone making something, but
it is only $26 for the for physical print.
Yeah, which is not bad. Also, it looks like
$26 for a physical print of the core rules is pretty good.
Yeah, and if you want all 3 of their books they're putting out, PDFs and print, it's $60.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So you'd have all the supplements there. So it looks like you've got kin, apparatuses, so I guess giant robots and stuff, and all that kind of things, and choose your things, build your stuff, and call it a day. They talk about their world and the things there, and apparently there's like weird, I guess, hive monsters or something that you're fighting against in giant robots, so neat.
That's fair.
I guess when you need, while you're fighting horrible, like, monsters, you need giant robots sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, giant robots are effective at killing monsters.
Yeah.
Tried and... It's a proven method.
You make me want to look at my random emotes, see what I have.
Someone gave me a gifted sub to Chilled, I guess.
Yeah, you've got the hamster with an ooze.
I've got a hamster with an ooze.
You do have a hamster with an ooze. I don't know why he gave the hamster a ooze.
I don't know. He learned what hamster was and then became obsessed with it.
I remember that. He's a very silly.
I believe he also just has a pet hamster.
He does too.
He has a billion animals.
Look, you know, a billion animals can be fun. Final topic for today's main topics is, of course, we talked about it briefly, but it is out now. Mm-hmm. The Star Trek Adventures Lower Deck Campaign Guide has been released. So now, if you want to be just the random Joe Schmoes that aren't as important on the ship, but, you know, you've still got jobs and can have your own adventures, it has information for that.
It does.
They have 8 new playable species, which is always cool. They got games assistant graphics for 7 space frames, which I guess are ships and stuff. Being, you know, details for being in the lower decks kind of thing, like just as part of less important people.
Dude who isn't important, you don't have a last name, so you're gonna die.
Yeah. Again, you know, it's an idea that, like, you certainly can have a humorous style to it too. But again, this same information could be used if you want to do something probably a little bit more serious, but still be like random Joe Schmoes.
In all honesty, even base Star Trek has a level of humor to it.
Yeah.
It's not a particularly serious setting unless it wants to be.
They can pull off serious, but a lot of times they just choose to be like...
There is just an episode of TNG where Picard and another dude just phaser a man and he explodes. And then a slug monster comes out of it. That is just an episode in the first season.
It was an episode of the first season.
It just happened, and it's never brought up again.
Yeah, they don't bring it up again. A bunch of times in the 3rd season, Picard has just like shirts when he's not in uniform, which are just like showing off his chest. He's also got a weird jacket that no one else has. Look up Worf's weird chair, which shows up more than once.
Chair.
Which, it's like these weird geometric shapes that's also a chair?
He's got a really weird chair. I don't understand.
Also,
very strange.
Apparently there's so many references, like someone in the production department loved Dirty Pair, which is a classic anime. So there's a billion references to it that show up, actually. Anyway, yeah, so... Yeah, that's, Lower Decks Campaign Guide's out, you know, if you're interested in dumping into it. It's a 200 fave, fully colored hardback book, so it is, you know... a big old book, and what's US?
Chalky book.
Yeah. So, yep. Check it out if you want. I'm sure they have a PDF of it. They usually do.
They do. I'd assume they have a PDF.
I just have to remember where to find this stuff. Thanks, Star Trek Adventures. That's this.
It's under their 2D20 section.
I'm just trying to like look up their stuff.
Somewhere in here. Source books, yeah, there are source books.
Sometimes it's just hard to look at this here.
Sure, I don't know if it's actually up on the store yet.
It might not be, or it might have been released early, honestly.
Yeah.
I've seen them do that too, that they've put out the PDF before the physical book. And they also have just to add to that, because I just noticed it now and I missed it. They have an adventure brief for the lower decks.
They do.
For free. Price is $0. If you're interested in that, you can check it out. See the style of it and all. All right. Well. We've reached a point in time where we dive into a discussion topic that can be very interesting. Sure. I'll just pull out this one that's... How far in the past in my list do we want to go?
I don't know.
Let's go not that far into the past. So here's a topic that I'd chosen for us to do. Let's talk about bosses.
Bosses?
Both mini bosses and major bosses.
Those are hard.
Yes. Now, Greg, so what would you define by a boss of something?
Something that is a deadly encounter.
I mean, that's a good way of describing it, but I would also describe it as...
Like, so, what I mean in terms of deadly is mechanically deadly.
Yeah.
As in, it's higher CR than hard. That, to me, because a boss is typically a 1 versus the party. So it has to be deadly. I mean... Otherwise, it's going to get stomped.
Certainly you could have versions of that that's more like, a guy with some minions for the party, too.
Oh, absolutely. It just should be a deadly encounter.
Yeah. I would describe... a boss can certainly form like, it's very different than the idea of villain. A villain is your campaign arch nemesis. I think we may have talked about that at some point in time.
I don't know if we did or not, to be honest.
But boss would be like a...
Moot man who's tough.
Yeah. The end villain of a story beat or adventure or something. The leader of a dungeon. Yeah. A dragon. That's you've been adventuring and you find a dragon and its horde at the center of a dungeon. Could easily be a boss.
It's a dungeon boss, right there.
Yeah. Mini bosses would be challenging fights which are usually related to the end boss or somehow reflect what's going on in that area. Certainly you can have various challenging encounters in a dungeon or battle scenario, but that's why I kind of like call it a little differently, because it's related to it. Like, a good example would be, again, skipped over a lot of it because we rewrote it. But back when you were going to go invade Harrigan's place.
Yep.
Technically speaking, things like his druid and he had like Kenku rogue that were both, pretty much would be called mini bosses because they're important members of his crew that are there. They have names, they have information, they have stats, they're like, built out for combat, and then he's the boss.
The problem with doing bosses in D20 games, specifically, I'll just look at D20 specifically, since that is the most common system people use, is a boss is just another monster at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's harder to make them unique because they still have to play by monster rules. Harrigan was technically, yes, a boss, but he died in 2 turns.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how it goes a lot of the time with bosses. They will either die very quickly or it'll be a slog.
It's an unfortunate thing that, like, the concept of the boss is a lot better than the execution of it.
Yes,
99% of the time.
It's not easy to do a boss in Pathfinder or 5th edition.
I think it's just a disadvantage of a lot of the ways 2D20 systems work, is because they are very, like, things with, like, turn-based combat and stuff like that.
In 5e, if you give it legendary actions and mythic actions and stuff, you at least have more things for it to do, so it can feel more epic. You don't really have that in Pathfinder. It's just a dude most of the time. Or a powerful monster.
It certainly is, like, one of those things that, like, it's supposed to be, and this is the unfortunate thing that can occur, too, is it's meant to be, like, you know, bosses themselves, the major bosses, are supposed to be, like, the culmination of what your, in quotation, story would be. Yeah. You know, absolutely. Whether that story is, you know, saving some kidnapped people, stopping, like, and I'm not talking, like, you know, again, this is more adventure rather than campaign level.
Yeah.
So defeating this base of bandits, or, you know, rooting out this group of cultists. There could be an overarching story that will lead to more adventures, but also this could be just one-off. Simply speaking, there are things that happen there, and there are ways that you can go straight to, like, the boss too sometimes.
Yes. I mean, what you'll probably, because I got an idea from watching a D&D. The way a boss was handled in this game was he was given not only special mechanics that would come up later, but he was given multiple health bars, multiple pools of HP, which is something you technically don't do in 5th edition.
Yeah, Worm was mentioning considering that in chat.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to do it, but in 5th edition it can definitely make the fights last too long.
And I feel like it's one of those things, is like, a boss at various different levels is very hit or miss too. Like, a low-level boss is probably going to feel a lot better than a higher-level boss, because levels equal complexity.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about that. And it's the unfortunate thing that when you're getting into those upper levels with complexity, sort of like, I could take a good example is if I took it straight from Carrion Crown. The midpoint has the boss, which is Orin Vrood. I remembered his name.
Yeah.
He has death spells.
He does, because of Pathfinder.
You've reached the level that probably after him you could maybe take care of that kind of thing and heal back from death, but it's instant death spells that he has there, so sort of like everybody could save badly and he could kill half the party, and then, you know, well, where's that going there?
It's old game design.
Yeah.
It's definitely a way to do it, but ideally you don't want to kill your players, so balancing a boss is very difficult.
It's the kind of interesting thing that, like, it's this levels of different things. Like, I for example, have expounded, which we don't see brought back in a lot of places, the 4th edition D&D's minion system, where if you want to add some danger or power but don't go too much to something, there's just these minions who would be leveled to your thing, but you basically can, like, take them out in one hit, so they can still do some hits to you and some threats to you, can defend against you, but they're like, you know, they fall in one hit, and they're kind of an interesting thing to, like, add in it. And I think that can help add to the feeling of something like a boss. He's got a bunch of mooks and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff like that which is kind of hard to express.
The only 3 times I've actually done a boss, I think went relatively okay. The Dragon Man at the end of the game, he played Badger. I think he was an okay boss.
Yeah.
The cyborg lady who kept suplexing people in the tables, I think she's probably the best boss encounter I've ever run, because I think she was low-level boss and complex enough to be interesting to fight. And I think those are the bosses need to be interesting to fight. That's the main thing. They have to have something interesting about them to set them apart, especially if they're a one-off.
Yeah. Like, you know, and some of these can be very, like, simple, I think. Like, ones that could be like, oh, it's a dragon fight, and you're trying to get its horde. You know, that, it's technically a boss, and, you know, though I have been in games where the dragon is not the boss, which is always kind of weird, but at that point in time, it almost is. It's that weird thing of, like, there is no real boss to a dungeon. There's a most powerful monster, which would be your dragon. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's a format you certainly can have. You know, the idea of the boss is it's the penultimate thing you have to defeat to, you know, finish whatever you're doing. Traditionally.
Yeah.
And a boss of something could be a villain, you know. I think talking about villains could be something to do on another day, you know.
Yeah, villains are kind of a different thing.
But it could be, you know, if you're going for it's time to finally fight the villain and defeat them, you know, then they would end up being the boss of that area. Mm-hmm. And again, it's... You don't need a boss. It can add a lot to an area. But it is, again, it's as you've said, it can be hard to make it feel like a thing, you know?
Yeah. Because, like, Harrigan was... I'll use Harrigan as an example. Because he was just a dude. Yeah. Harrigan was meant to be the final quote-unquote boss of that book. And he went down faster than some of the mooks did.
Yeah. And it's just an unfortunate thing that, like, again, like Lightning just said this in chat, adding custom rules and mechanics for boss-style combats can ruin the game experience because, you know, you don't know how those custom rules are going to work until you play them. It's an unfortunate thing that there is this mentality, I think, that's built into us because, you know, if we had been from the 70s, I don't think it would have been there. But with us and all of our time, it's the video game mentality.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've all played fantasy games. They all have dungeon bosses in them, right?
Yeah.
Like, building a dungeon, you tend to think, at least I do, personally, because it's a lot of what I did is the Final Fantasy or a Zelda, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have these boss monsters. You can't really do that with Edition or Pathfinder, effectively. There are systems where you can, probably, I'm sure, somewhere. But not really D20s.
I think the idea of the other thing I kind of suggested is the mini-boss is maybe better. That they're just tougher monsters which represent a theme to a dungeon or an area that represent it. You know, and yes, they could be just some tough battles where a little bit more difficult. And again, your players could still power them. But the idea that there's these, like, areas that are secured and add story, it means because they are mini bosses, you don't need them to feel super powerful, you know? I think that might be a better idea for, like, oh, you know, rather than having one big bad guy, there's just a bunch of tough dudes that are here that, you know, you take out a couple different ones. Yeah, and the thing is, like, I gotta admit, bosses in a lot of video games, a lot of fantasy stuff can be also hit and miss too.
Yes.
You know, it's
absolutely.
And I think that's the other thing is that we see for designs for video games where this mentality comes from is because when we have an experience with a game, it becomes the overall experience and we're spending a lot of more intimate time with it. When we have these kind of very sloggy things or very difficult things, they blend in a lot better differently than a more group creative experience where we're all sharing, and it is a lot more of our own imagination that we're bringing into it. So you're only as cool as you believe rather than how cool you're being shown to be, regardless of what's going on.
Final Fantasy 14 does have some genuinely terrible bosses.
And I think that's like a very good example of, like, putting that in, talking about it there. Like, oh, the Final Fantasy 14 bosses. They've got a lot of them. It's pretty expensive. It's an MMO.
There's a shitload of bosses. I'd say, like, there are like, I'd say about like 30% of them I never want to fight again.
But the thing is, the overall experience is keeping you going. And yes, a role-playing game is very fun. You can keep going regardless of how difficult or great a boss is or something like that. But it's also something that it becomes harder to express that in a great way that is more memorable. And, you know, even in a video game, the bad bosses you sometimes can remember. Because you're like, I don't want to fight that again. You know? The problem with the bad boss might be you just forget it or something, too. It's like, it's just, you have a lot more steps and a lot more difficulty creating a boss in a medium which is much more imagination-based.
Yeah, like, you can have a cool token on the field and your boss can do cool things, but you have to describe him as being cool, doing these cool things. And your players have to imagine this dude as being a cool dude and not some loser.
Yeah. And they have to feel like they can fight it, too. You know, they have to feel like it is a challenge and an appropriate thing to it, and that's, again, it's so hard to express. This all comes down to, like, some very similar problems, I think, to previous discussions we've had on, like, monsters and challenges and stuff. You know, that there are a lot of challenges in building encounters. It's just that the boss is even more difficult because the culmination of those expressions of combat and monster, and it's meant to be very entertaining to your players, and just, will it be? I don't know.
Could be. Could not be. That's just how D&D is, right? Like, I was sticking to Final Fantasy because it's an MMO and people can relate to that, I'm sure. You have the whole story in front of you playing out. Every detail is told to you through a medium of pre-rendered cutscenes written by a whole writing team, vetted to hopefully be good. Is Final Fantasy XIV good? One of the DLCs or one of the expansions is really fucking bad, right? But my point is, for D&D games, you are one dude making this whole world and game. You don't have the time to make bosses that feel really important and cool, as well as write a story that feels more important and cool. Because the story matters more than the bosses.
Yeah, certainly.
You as a DM, you don't have a team of people making everything individually and putting it together. You're one person making it all.
And that's the thing is, like, even like the fairly decent example of I just use a dragon. The problem with that is it's got its base statistics. It works all the way always the same way in whatever system you're playing. And regardless of how difficult it is for your players, it's very typical. Granted, it does feel boss-like a lot of times, but it's not a special thing kind of thing. Like, sometimes you want.
Half of my quote-unquote boss monsters are just dudes.
Yeah.
They're just guys with stuff.
Yeah. Granted, that could go for the juxtaposition where it's sort of like this presumed threat exists, and honestly speaking, you couldn't pull it off all the time, but this is something you can pull off like once in a while. Is the boss ends up being something that's not a threat, you know? Just
the bigger boss behind the boss.
No, not even that. Like, yes, he was a boss of this whatever it was, but it's just by chance. It was a leader less by strength and more by, you know, intelligence. It's sort of like, I'm just a dude. I stab easy.
The guy.
Yeah. I'm just the brains of this operation. Then you don't really have a fight or something, so that's kind of like... It's
a different kind of encounter.
Yeah. Which is not necessarily bad, having... like.
This is also my personal opinion. You can have these quote-unquote bosses that are not a combat encounter.
Yeah.
No social encounters.
Certainly, social encounters are great.
Environmental-based encounters with checks as well, you know?
Yep.
Doesn't always have to be a fight.
Puzzle encounters. You have to work on puzzles, though, which is an entirely different problem. But if you're good at making puzzles and stuff like that, or riddles,
hard.
Yeah, if you are good at that kind of thing or confident on that kind of thing, you could do that. But again, puzzles are hard. So, but it is a type. There are other, and again, it comes down to like the combat / skill could be divided up between different things. You could still use combat abilities that are more skill-based combat abilities to overcome things and stuff and all that, kind of build a kind of like series of some kind of challenge. However it is, it could still be fun, and it doesn't have to be this direct combat, Yeah,
I mean, the last thing I'll say on bosses is, like, never get too attached to your idea that this dude is a badass, because sometimes, like, you have this idea of you have this cool, amazing boss music in your head when you're making this guy, but then when the encounter runs, you really... stuff happens where it's like, well, it's no longer boss music, now it's circus music, because the party's doing dumb shit to him, and he's failing everything, right?
My goal at this point in time for any boss is for it to, like, last 3 turns, honestly.
It's very hard to make it last longer than 2 turns.
Honestly speaking.
That's why in 5e you give it legendary action, so it can do anything before being clowned up.
It's unfortunate that, like, my team of people in Buccaneers are just a lot of striker damage.
Absurdly strong for damage.
Yeah.
In a campaign where we're fighting humans.
It just ended up being some crazy builds. I think that's another thing that if I do another campaign, I'll have to be, like, more criticizing on people's builds.
I just love that 2 of the highest damage people, me and Yakul, aren't even, like, non-standard builds. We're just a gunslinger and then a standard fighter.
I mean, like, you have 2...
We've got 2 mega sneak attack people.
Yeah.
And then an Arcanist, which is broken. Which, if you run another game, I'm going to just tell you ban Arcanist, because it's a broken class.
I'm probably going to put, like, a caveat on, you will have to talk with me about any hybrid class. Just,
Hybrid classes are just mildly broken a lot of the times. Because they're the best parts of the 2 classes, with none of the downsides.
Yep.
That's why I don't really ever play them. Because I'm like, well, I really want to break the game.
Yeah. It's, Buccaneers is fun, but it's kind of at this point in time where, like, I am more connected with the story than the things you're going to fight, because the things you're going to fight are probably... It's this unfortunate thing that,
we're like level 13. We're basically unstoppable.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to, like, have something that feels like a challenge, and I think the most annoying thing I have is Revia's fucking overconfidence.
Oh, Revia is way too overconfident.
Cell putting that out there, I'm just like, it makes me want to put something more difficult there just because of Cell, but I've held off from it, at least, because it's just, it just is a little annoying for me.
It's like, Revia, I will say, is definitely the character I like the most, because of that overconfidence, that ignorant overconfidence is what I'll call it.
And yes, that's the character, but I feel like that's the issue, I think, with Revia, is Revia hasn't grown at all.
Revia hasn't learned anything.
Yeah.
Yakul's become an actual person. Misty's learned to not be evil. Chester just joined, so, he was already developed, man.
But Chester still, I feel like, has had more development still, too. Yeah. Chester's, not a lot. But then even Jacob feel like,
He's gotten more competent, which is very good growth.
Yeah. And, he's still kind of an idiot, but at least he's your
dumb,
idiot.
But he's competent now.
Yeah. He's idiot.
Confident in stupidity.
So it's sort of like... And
Revia to me is still like the same person she was in, like, Session.
It's the unfortunate thing that I kind of agree. It's the character hasn't had any major growth. I can't say the character hasn't changed and had some growth, but I feel like
I don't want a major growth.
not any major growth, which is just, it's unfortunate, but like, I don't know what I could have done.
Just be that way sometimes.
But that's again, that comes into a thing of like, sometimes as much as the idea and concept behind a boss are interesting, they just don't work either, you know?
Yeah, and you gotta be ready for all your monsters to just get absolutely clowned on.
Yeah, and it's just the unfortunate thing that, you know, as we said, fightness might not be the most interesting thing. It's the technical easiest thing to do.
You can find all of them into one. It's pretty cool. That's very difficult.
Yeah. But so yeah, certainly bosses are a thing that you will come across, and you know, either as a player can come across or as a person running a game, you're gonna have to use one some point in time, and you're just gonna have to figure it out. It is a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. It is a difficult thing to do it, and you're probably not going to be able to do it in quotation right, at least by your feelings. You're just going to have to try to do the best you can, and kind of understand your players, and maybe honestly just keeping it simple to the dragon on a pile of treasure, or something of the equivalent isn't bad too, you know.
Yeah.
At least for your first couple ones, get a feeling of things.
Sometimes a dude in armor is just a pretty good fight.
Yeah. Very true, very true. So, how was your week in tabletop?
Well, I did a couple things.
You've been doing Sundays still, at least for now.
Sunday got canceled because Jay had a heat stroke.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's been really hot, and also Canada's on fire, so... That
is true. The after effects of Canada on fire came down to the south here.
I got pretty bad. But Jay was very ill, so he canceled.
Yeah, understandable. Definitely. Did you do anything on Monday?
No, not on Monday, and nothing on Tuesday either.
Oh, so pretty quiet beginning of the week. Well, Buccaneers, we had that, and I think that went well.
Aside from the technical difficulty,
the stream died weirdly in the middle of it, and it's not my system crashed. It's like half of my things kind of crashed. Like Discord crashed, and then my OBS stopped. Like the stream just stopped on OBS in the middle of that. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll restart OBS. But then OBS didn't want to restart because I guess reasons, and then Discord wanted to update, and then like I'm just like, I guess I'll also reset.
Yeah, we
other
lost
stuff.
A good 20 minutes because of the crash.
Because like it was like everything wanted to update then or something too. Because then I'm like,
broke immediately.
Yeah, I was like, I guess I'll restart Firefox because maybe there was a memory error somewhere, and if I restart it, that might help. Oh, it needs an update too. That sometimes causes a memory error. Maybe it had that, and that's what caused Discord to spike up. Also at the same time, if there was an issue in Discord,
definitely
combined in I don't know. Anyway.
I definitely zoned out for some of the last session because I played for 10 minutes. And then I was like, man, I'll just space out for a little bit, and then if I'm called, I'll return.
I started with you folks, and then I ended with you two that were in the Hell Knights. And I wanted to do more with the crash and like...
Yeah, it got a little rough.
And honestly... Team B is a bunch of idiots.
Team B makes some choices. In Revia, I got really frustrated when I, specifically in character, have told Revia, hey, you can trust this dude. I've known him for a long time, and then there was so much resistance of just giving a name to make the encounter go smoother.
There was just so many, like...
Revia makes so many poor social choices.
For a charisma character, it's just so... I don't understand it.
Revia is like a 20-something diplomacy, but it's the most socially awkward person ever to be alive.
Truly is true. To summarize things, we started out with some more Hell Knight adventures. You arrived, I got you checked in, you talked to some people, I was kind of setting everything up. I felt like maybe doing more, but like, honestly, I was trying to do like I was only going to go to like part of the morning for them and then part of the morning for you. But then they went on like...
Yeah, a whole last day passed, so we technically need to figure out what Jacob and Misty did for an entire day.
I don't know, because they wandered off and did like... I don't know what... They went looking for a Thieves Guild that said, "We'll call you."
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. The Thieves Guild said, "We'll contact you," and they're like, let's go find them.
Broke into the Thieves Guild. It was a little bit weird. So yeah, we need to technically figure out what the hell Jacob and Misty did for a whole day.
I don't know. I just... It's so hard to, like... They did so many terrible ideas. Like, there was stuff they're like, okay, they went to a person that had information. Sort of. He wasn't really a great person to ask for information. I had to kind of confirm this. And then they're wandering into the an entrance to the sewer, and I'm like, I try to hint at it, like, okay, I did get them to follow it. It's sort of like, okay, you could find more hideouts like this, and you're probably not going to go find anything because these are the emergency let's go hide outfits. The actual one you'd have to wander into the sewers to find. Wait, none of you have the skill to do that? Why don't you go... No, you're not going to wait for someone that has the skill to do that?
The sole reason I told them to go to Misty's brother is Misty knows where that man lives and was going to go find them there because it's the easiest location she knows. And they weren't there, and I'm like, well, shit, now I gotta go find them.
I thought they were going to stay there too, kind of like, or maybe at least like look into something from the room or something.
Vicinity, at least,
Yeah, I didn't think they'd go wandering half the city where they know nothing and where honestly, they probably stood out.
Yeah, they're not very good at blending.
No, there might be suspicion. I haven't included that, but if I wanted to, I could add suspicion for their idiocy, for like them wandering around the city. Granted, asking the right questions to the right people mostly, they're still just wandering around and, like, going into secret places that are probably accessed at night in the middle of the day.
Yeah. There will be a conversation.
They're very dumb. I don't... And then the fighting at the Thieves Guild was just so unnecessary. It's like, it took, like, 10 more minutes than it needed to.
Yeah.
They're like... We broke into your place. We're going to be disrespectful. I'm like...
Pretty much. Like, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. They were getting pissed off at these people, and they broke into their place. I don't understand that. It's like bursting down someone's down, and when they're angry at you, being angry at them for being angry at you. Anyway, it's fine. We got through.
To drop some Tweet Chelix lore on chat, because that is stuff I do know.
Mm-hmm.
That beast is fucked. Because there's a portal to hell in that forest.
Yeah. So. Anyway. It was fine, It wasn't a terrible session. It just... It discombobulated me a little bit.
Tech difficulties and player choices.
And I do regret I didn't have enough of you and Jacob, because I did kind of want to do more.
It was fine, because I was also just very tired that day. So I just kind of got to relax a bit.
That's why I kind of threw about the why don't you go find everybody else and then we can have these meetings kind of thing, I just was like, I just want you to meet up so we don't have to worry about this anymore. Because otherwise I would have had you go do meeting stuff with people and like storyline stuff of like, we have to talk to this Inquisitor guy who doesn't technically know me but, knows my brother, so you ought to be on guard. Anyway. Did you do anything on Thursday?
With my game on Thursday. The party broke into a warehouse and they made some very interesting choices. They broke in pretty successfully, in all honesty. They were very well hidden for a while. They managed to knock a guard out and hide his unconscious body, Hitman style, in a chest. And then, for whatever reason, when discovered, a majority of the party decided to just leave after the social encounter of, hey, leave or we're going to fight you. And the party's like, alright, we'll just leave. And then they went back in immediately and fought them. So I don't understand why they took that extra step. It's logic I don't quite get when I clearly describe these dudes as like, hey, they're super sus and hiding stuff, you should beat them up or something. And they didn't. And then they did 5 seconds later, after leaving the building and breaking down the front door when they were already inside. Somehow Lightning's character is the most confident person. Lightning's character is a mild meme. But they beat up some bandits regarding a warehouse. Found out one of them was a fiend man.
Ooh.
And they found some corrupted crystals that are being created in this warehouse, or refined in this warehouse, shipped to various places, and these crystals are very good for opening up planar portals.
Ah, gotcha.
They may or may not be the crystals that created a flesh cave in a previous game.
Oh, flesh cave. Good times. Wait, no, it's not good times. I lied.
This game is 30 years post flesh cave, so one might show up. I haven't decided yet. I feel like I've done too many of them, and too many of them existed in games. I feel like it's a little weird if I add more.
Yeah, there's a limited amount of flesh cave you can really do.
Like, I didn't originally intend for my last game to have it, but I got really into Dead Space for a while, and I'm like, just subconsciously made Dead Space.
Did you do anything on Friday?
No, I didn't.
I was just gonna say, I'm getting trauma from, like, I gave the team the Baylor for reasons, and Cell on Wednesday keeps wanting to use it for anything but the reasons.
Yeah, this is why I think you should stop giving Cell things.
I really should. Because Cell's like, okay, so it's like, use this only in this situation, or it will probably try to murder you. Let's use it right now instead. Like,
Cell already has a sea monster to summon if things in that battle. Doesn't need to add a Baylor on top of it.
I've set up the situation where the Baylor should be used smartly. You're not going to use it smartly.
No, I don't think the Baylor is ever going to get used. I'm going to be honest.
It's for the best.
It's just never going to get brought out.
It really is the best that it's not used, honestly, at this point in time, because I have very high doubts that it will be used in a tactical and intelligent way.
No.
So, anyway. So that was our week in gaming. Yay! Wasn't a huge week, but there was some stuff there. If you missed me talking about tabletop this week, I did do that a couple of times. I talked about Besem 4E, how to make a character in that, and how it's different from 3E on Tuesday. I talked about how to make a Starfinder character and how surprised... every time I dive into Starfinder, I'm always surprised how it's this weird mesh of Pathfinder 1E and 2E.
It is very much Pathfinder 1.5.
Yeah.
It does things I actually really like having 2 separate HP pools.
Yeah.
I'm actually a huge fan of separate HP in tabletop systems.
Yeah. So, it's definitely got some interesting ideas, and it was fun to kind of dive into that. And then if you missed earlier today, I talked about mage traditions, which is... They're weird, and we'll just leave it at that. It's mage. Mage the Ascension. Yeah.
It's mage. It's not great.
It can be fun to play, but it's not great to run. Players never have an issue usually. It's the storytellers that do. That one. Be warned. Anyway, and that's it. So, I hope everybody has had a great day today and enjoyed your Saturday. I will be back on Monday, discussing tabletop. Continue next week with perhaps Momo here, maybe we'll try to get some extra people.
I should be here next week.
Okay.
And the following week. After that, it'll get a little weird.
Well, I'll start talking to other people and seeing, if we can start scheduling some things for people or stuff like that. Maybe that's a good idea for me to do for people, normal people, just discuss it with possible scheduling. Something I probably should have done a while ago, and I just haven't done. Buccaneers of Shacklesea on Wednesday, 9 p.m. EST. Make sure to check that out. Every Tuesday, Thursday, tabletop at 1 p.m. EST. Saturday, 11 o'clock in the morning. And then I do some gaming streams every day, starting between 10 and 11 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Remember, check out, I've got my Twitch here. The YouTube side, if you're watching us on YouTube, hi YouTube. If you're watching us on Twitch,
YouTube.
Hey, great, you've been in chatting with us. Follow, Twitch, subscribe YouTube, and, you know, do all the different things to check out stuff and to give support. You know, the YouTube's got a lot more like likes and, you know, comments and stuff, which are good. And then Discord and Twitter for my information. Thank you again, Momo, for joining me.
No problem.
And I guess I will say I think I've shouted out everything I need to remember to shout out. So farewell, everybody, and see you hopefully next week. And if you just want to check me out, at least on Monday or Tuesday for tabletop stuff. Anyway, farewell, everybody. Have a good one.